Elias Vance had learned that the diplomatic station never truly slept. The lights dimmed. The corridors grew quieter. But somewhere a machine always hummed. And someone from some species was always awake. Still, that night felt different. The air itself seemed tense, as if the station was holding its breath. Elias was just a systems engineer, human, average height, forgettable face, on a station filled with beings twice his size or glowing with colors his eyes could barely process. He blended into the background easily. That was fine with him. He liked machines more than attention. He was finishing a routine diagnostic in a secondary corridor when his wrist terminal chimed. A private summons. That alone made him pause. Engineers did not receive private summons, especially not from senior alien researchers. He checked the source again to be sure he wasn't misreading it. The name translated awkwardly into human language. Something close to observer of long patterns. Her species was known for intelligence, distance, and strict privacy. Humans rarely interacted with them directly. The message was brief. Your presence is requested. Alone. Elias considered declining. He really did. But curiosity had always been his weakness. It was the reason he became an engineer, the reason he volunteered for off-world duty, the reason he was standing on a station light years from Earth. He replied with a simple acknowledgement. The route his terminal provided led him away from public areas, deeper into restricted residential sections. The walls here were smoother, the lighting softer, adjusted for non-human senses. His footsteps sounded too loud. When he reached the door, he hesitated. There was no guard, no visible scanner. The door slid open the moment he stood before it, as if it had been waiting. He stepped inside. The room was larger than he expected, shaped in gentle curves instead of sharp angles. Floating panels hovered in the air, covered in alien symbols and shifting images of stars. The atmosphere felt controlled, calm, and old, like a library built over centuries. At first, Elias didn't see her. Then he did. She stood near the far wall, tall and slender. Her form wrapped in layered fabric that shifted color slightly as she moved. Her eyes were dark and reflective, unreadable. You came, she said. Her voice was clear, translated smoothly by his implant. You asked, Elias replied, keeping his tone respectful. She studied him for a long moment, as if confirming something only she could see. Then she gestured lightly. Step further inside. Elias obeyed, his attention drawn to the room's main display wall. It was active now, glowing faintly. Then he stopped walking, because on that wall was a photograph. A human photograph. His photograph. Elias felt his breath catch. The image showed him standing outdoors, younger by several years, wearing a simple jacket. Earth's sky stretched behind him, pale blue and familiar. He remembered that day. A routine systems test near a wind farm. Nothing important, yet there it was, displayed clearly, surrounded by alien text. That's me, Elias said quietly. Yes, the alien woman replied. It is. His heart began to pound. How do you have that? She did not answer immediately. Instead, she moved closer to the display, her fingers passing through the light, as if rearranging invisible layers. Do you know? She asked. How many species believe they are alone before they look up? Elias swallowed. All of them? Most, she corrected. And most are wrong. The display shifted. The photograph shrank slightly, making room for others. At first, Elias didn't understand what he was seeing. Then he did. More photos appeared. Human photos. Old ones. Black and white images. Painted portraits. Rough sketches. Faces from different eras. Different cultures. Some wore clothing he recognized from history lessons. Others wore nothing at all. Elias's knees felt weak. You've been watching us, he said. For a very long time, she replied. Anger flared in his chest, but confusion burned hotter. Why? She turned to face him fully. Because your species kept surviving. That's not special, Elias said. Life survives everywhere. Not like this, she said calmly. The display changed again. Now it showed timelines. Simple lines rising and falling, branching and merging. Most intelligent species emerge under stable conditions, she explained. Long periods of balance, minimal disruption. When catastrophe comes, many fail. Images of alien worlds flickered briefly, civilizations rising, then ending. Your world, she continued, was never stable. Elias watched scenes of Earth flash by. Ice covering continents, fire raining from the sky, oceans rising, diseases spreading. And yet, she said, you adapted. Repeatedly, the images shifted to humans building shelters, farming, healing, learning. Always moving forward. Even after falling back, we classified you as a statistical anomaly, she said. At first. At first? Elias echoed. Yes. The photograph of Elias expanded again, moving to the center of the display. Text beneath it glowed faintly. He didn't understand the symbols, but the translation appeared moments later. Origin subject. Elias stared. I'm not important. She nodded. Correct. He looked at her sharply. You misunderstand, she continued. You are not important as an individual. You are important as a pattern. She brought up layered diagrams, simplified so his mind could follow them. Genetic markers, migration paths, survival clusters. Your lineage, she said, intersects multiple survival thresholds. Your ancestors lived where others did not, adapted where others failed. Elias shook his head. So did millions of people. Yes, she agreed. And that is precisely the point. He felt cold. You're talking about humanity like an experiment. Her expression did not change. Observation does not require cruelty. Control does. Elias snapped. For the first time, something like hesitation passed through her eyes. We did not interfere directly, she said. We guided outcomes. Reduced exposure. Slowed contact. You held us back, Elias said. We delayed you, she replied. Because every model showed the same result. She waved her hand, and the room darkened. Stars filled the space around them. Simulations played out. Ghostly and silent. Human ships spreading rapidly, trade networks reshaped, old powers destabilized. In every scenario where humanity advanced without restraint, she said, the existing balance collapsed. Elias clenched his fists. So you decided for us. We chose caution, she said. For everyone. The station suddenly vibrated, just slightly. Elias felt it through his boots. She looked upward. Security systems are running deeper scans, she said calmly. This conversation is not authorized. Then why are you doing it? Elias demanded. She met his gaze. Because observation has reached its limit, she said, and because you were curious enough to walk through the door. Another vibration, stronger this time. Elias's mind raced, fear tangled with anger and something else he couldn't name. What happens now? She turned back to the display. His photograph remained, glowing softly among thousands of others. Now, she said, you return to your quarters and pretend this never happened. And if I don't? Elias asked. She paused. Then the galaxy will have to face the consequences of knowing you are no longer unaware. The door behind him slid open silently. Elias looked once more at his own face, staring back at him from the wall. Labeled and categorized by beings who had watched his species struggle, fail, and rise again. Then he stepped out into the corridor, and nothing about the universe felt the same anymore. Elias Vance did not sleep that night. After leaving the alien woman's room, his mind kept replaying the image on the wall. His own face. Younger. Standing on Earth under a pale blue sky that had not seen alien ships yet. The photo had been taken before humanity even knew it was being watched. The station lights dimmed to night cycle, but Elias sat on the edge of his narrow bunk, hands clasped, breathing slow. Engineers were trained to solve problems. But this was not a problem with wires or systems. This was a question about existence. By morning, the summons came. A quiet tone echoed through his quarters. Not an alarm, not an order, a request. The same alien researcher, using a secure channel. Elias hesitated only a second before answering. The door to her quarters opened smoothly, as if it recognized him now. Inside, the room felt different from before. The lights were softer. The floating displays were active, filled with symbols, timelines, and rotating images of stars. His photo was still there, but now it was one among thousands. Faces, human faces, men, women, children. Some in old clothing, some in uniforms, some painted, scarred, smiling, afraid. Each image was tagged with symbols and dates stretching back far beyond written history. Elias swallowed. "You were never alone," the alien woman said calmly. "Your species was observed from the moment it learned to use tools." Her voice was steady, but Elias noticed tension in her posture. She was taking a risk. "Why?" he asked. His voice sounded smaller than he wanted. "Why us?" She moved one of the displays closer. It shifted into simple translated language, clearly adjusted for a human mind. "Most intelligent species follow predictable paths," she said. "Stable worlds, long lifespans, slow innovation. When danger comes, they wait for leaders, councils, or tradition to respond." The display changed. Simulations showed alien civilizations collapsing when conditions changed too quickly. "Humans did not do this," she continued. The images shifted again. Ice ages, volcanic eruptions, plagues, wars. Each time, human populations dropped sharply, then rose again. "You adapted under pressure," she said. "You shared knowledge. You repurposed tools. You learned from failure faster than any species we recorded." Elias felt his chest tighten. "We also destroyed each other." "Yes," she said without hesitation. "And still you survived. That is the anomaly." She brought his photo forward again. The label beneath it, translated clearly now. "Lineage convergence marker." "I don't understand," Elias said. "You are not important because of who you are," she said. "You are important because of where you come from." She showed him genetic maps, not complex equations, but simple branching lines. Elias recognized something from his medical records: rare resistance markers, adaptive immune responses that researchers never fully explained. "Your genetic line survived multiple extinction-level events," she said. "Not by isolation, by cooperation, by movement, by change." Elias stared at the screen. "So you tracked bloodlines." "We tracked survival," she corrected. "Individuals who represented turning points. Explorers, engineers, caretakers, not rulers." He let out a slow breath. "And you kept this secret?" "Yes." "Why?" For the first time, she hesitated. "Because when we modeled your future," she said, "every scenario where humanity learned the truth too early ended the same way." The display shifted again. Simulated stars went dark, alliances fractured. Control systems failed. "You do not submit well," she said softly. "You do not stagnate. When humans realize they are being limited, they push harder than expected." Elias felt anger rise, hot and sharp. "So you decided for us." "We delayed," she said. "We guided first contact to be gradual, controlled. We hoped you would integrate slowly." "And now?" he asked. "Now you are here," she said. "And you saw the photo." A low vibration passed through the room. Elias recognized it as a station-wide scan. Her eyes flicked upward. "They are looking for unauthorized data access," she said. "This conversation is already being flagged." "Then stop," Elias said. "I didn't ask for this." She looked at him closely. "Yes, you did," he frowned. "When?" "When you stepped inside instead of turning away," she said. "Humans always do that." Another vibration, stronger. She moved quickly now, pulling a small crystalline object from a recessed panel. She pressed it into Elias's hand. It felt warm, almost alive. "This contains everything," she said. "The observations, the models, the restrictions placed on your species." Elias's heart pounded. "You're giving this to me?" "Yes. They'll destroy you. They may detain me, she said. But information once transferred cannot be unlearned. Station alarms began to sound, distant but growing closer. Elias hesitated. Why are you really doing this? She met his eyes. Because your species is reaching the point where delay becomes danger. And because someone must choose trust over control. Security footsteps echoed in the corridor. She straightened. Go. Use maintenance shafts. Your clearance still applies. What about you? She turned back to the displays, already wiping data trails. I will say I followed protocol. That curiosity was yours alone. Elias backed toward the door. Thank you. She paused, then said quietly, when humans act together, the universe changes. Do not forget that. The door sealed behind him. Elias moved fast through the narrow maintenance tunnels, his engineer's instincts guiding him through twists and pressure locks. His mind raced faster than his feet. They watched us. They feared us. They slowed us down. By the time he reached his quarters, the station was already buzzing with rumors. Security patrols doubled. Communication channels were restricted. Elias locked the door and sat on the floor, staring at the data shard in his hand. He activated it. The room filled with projections. Timelines showing human inventions suppressed by trade restrictions. Energy systems quietly discouraged. Exploration routes redirected. Not sabotage, something worse. Careful control. Elias understood then. Humanity was not weak, it was restrained. He thought of Earth. Of crowded cities and struggling colonies. Of humans always pushing forward, even when told to wait. A message blinked on his personal terminal. A priority channel from Earth Command. How much do you know? The message asked. Elias looked at the glowing data around him and typed back. Enough, he wrote. And it changes everything. Far across the station, the alien researcher stood calmly as security entered her quarters. She raised her hands without resistance. In her mind, one thought remained steady. The experiment was over. Humanity had seen the truth. And now, the galaxy would have to adapt. Elias did not leave the station when Earth Command told him to. Instead, he stayed exactly where he was, because Part 3 of humanity's story did not begin with ships or weapons. It began with listening. For the first time, human leadership was not reacting to a threat. They were studying one. The data Elias had delivered spread across Earth and the outer colonies in quiet waves. Scientists reviewed models. Engineers tested assumptions. Diplomats compared timelines. Nothing was rushed, and nothing was dismissed. Humans had learned long ago that panic wasted energy. The conclusion came quickly and calmly. Humanity had been managed. Not enslaved, not attacked. Guided just enough to stay behind. Once that truth settled in, something strange happened. There was no public outrage, no mass fear, only a deep, shared focus. The galaxy expected anger. Instead, humanity prepared. On the diplomatic station, Elias watched the change in real time. Human crews walked with more purpose. Conversations shifted from complaints about restrictions to discussions about workarounds. Small teams formed in unused maintenance bays. Old systems were re-examined with fresh eyes. Humans stopped asking permission. The first move was invisible. Alliance regulations limited energy output per vessel, supposedly for safety. Human engineers found a way to redistribute energy through redundancy loops, staying within allowed limits while achieving greater performance. It was legal. It was clever. It worked. Then came navigation. Alien ships relied on predictive pathing based on stable physics assumptions. Human pilots preferred reactive systems, adjusting constantly. When humans combined both, their ships began making jumps that looked impossible on paper. Still legal. Still allowed. Elias assisted where he could, acting as a quiet bridge between data and action. He never spoke publicly. He didn't need to. Others were already connecting the same dots. The Alliance noticed, but too late. When sanctions were proposed against Earth for non-cooperative advancement, the vote failed. Several smaller species abstained. They had started watching humans more closely, not with fear, but with curiosity. Sanctions passed on the second attempt. Trade routes were restricted. Research sharing paused. Joint patrols suspended. Humanity responded by sealing nothing and threatening no one. Instead, they adapted. Earth redirected resources inward. Colonies became self-sufficient, faster than any model predicted. Humans reused older technology in new ways, combining low-level components into systems that were harder to disrupt because they were not elegant. Alien engineers favored perfection. Humans favored function. Elias received a secure update from Earth Command. The message was simple: do not escalate. Observe. The Alliance expected defiance or submission. They got neither. Then came the test. A border incident occurred near a neutral system. An Alliance patrol ship suffered a critical failure. Its distress signal was weak and scrambled. No rescue vessel was close enough except a human ship. The human captain did not wait for approval. The ship altered course and jumped. What they found surprised everyone. The Alliance vessel was intact but powerless. Its systems locked by its own safeguards. The failure was not an attack. It was an internal cascade, the kind alien systems struggled to recover from without external command authorization. Human engineers boarded the ship. They did not ask why the safeguards existed. They bypassed them. Within hours, the alien ship was operational. No data was stolen. No demands were made. The human ship escorted it safely to the nearest port and left without ceremony. The story spread, not as propaganda, as fact. Humans could fix what the galaxy overdesigned. More incidents followed. Navigation failures, environmental malfunctions, supply chain disruptions. Humans responded every time, quietly and efficiently. They shared methods freely, never claiming credit. Other species began requesting human assistance directly, bypassing Alliance channels. The Alliance Council called an emergency session. Elias watched the broadcast from his quarters. Representatives spoke carefully, avoiding the word fear. But it hung in the room anyway. Humans were not breaking rules. They were exposing weaknesses. A proposal was made to restrict human ship movement. That was when Earth acted. Not with threats, with information. Human analysts released a public report showing that Alliance trade stability depended on human-maintained routes more than anyone realized. They presented it clearly, politely, with citations. No accusations, no demands, just reality. Several council members went silent. Restrictions were postponed. Privately, Elias received another message. This one was encrypted differently. Not from Earth, it was from the alien researcher. "I am monitored," the message read, but not silenced. Elias responded carefully. "We are moving slowly." "Good," she replied. "That is what unsettles them most." On Earth, a quiet shift became visible. Children were taught interstellar history without filters. Universities revised models based on real constraints instead of Alliance assumptions. Military academies focused less on firepower and more on logistics, psychology, and adaptability. Humans remembered something important. They had always been dangerous when underestimated. The Alliance attempted one final measure. A joint fleet exercise was announced near human space. Participation was requested. The scenario was a simulated emergency response, under strict Alliance command. Earth agreed. The human fleet arrived smaller, older, and less impressive on the surface. Alliance observers noted this with confidence. The simulation began. Within minutes, the scenario collapsed. Human ships responded to changing conditions faster than commands could be issued. They redistributed roles on the fly. When communication channels were jammed as part of the exercise, human crews switched to local autonomy without confusion. They did not win by force. They won by thinking. At the end of the exercise, Alliance systems showed that if it had been real, the human response would have stabilized the region, while Alliance command protocols would still be debating authorization. Silence followed. Elias stood on an observation deck as ships dispersed. For the first time since joining the stars, humans were not being measured as a developing species. They were being studied as peers. The alien researcher's final message came hours later. "The models are breaking," she wrote. "Not because you are stronger. Because you refuse to behave as predicted." Elias looked out at the stars and thought of Earth. of crowded streets and stubborn hope, of people who never waited for perfect conditions. He typed one last response. We never did. Across the galaxy, something shifted. Not a war, not an alliance collapse, an understanding. Humanity was no longer asking where it belonged. They were already there. The galaxy did not change in one loud moment. It changed quietly, the way deep systems always do, through small decisions that could not be undone once made. After the fleet exercise, alliance communications slowed. Councils delayed votes. Committees requested more data than usual. It was not confusion. It was caution. For the first time in a long while, the galaxy was unsure how to handle humans. Elias Vance was asked to return to the diplomatic station, not as an engineer this time, but as a temporary human representative. The request came from the Alliance Council itself. The message was polite, carefully worded, almost respectful. When Elias stepped onto the station, he felt the difference immediately. Other species looked at him longer than before, not with suspicion, but with calculation. Some inclined their heads in gestures that had never been offered to humans. He walked the same corridors he once hurried through unnoticed. Now doors opened faster. Terminals adjusted to his presence. He was still human, still ordinary, but the space around him treated him differently. The council chamber was full. Elias took his seat at the human table, simple and unadorned. Across from him sat representatives of species that had once debated whether humanity should be allowed limited exploration rights. Now they studied him closely, as if trying to understand how something so familiar could suddenly feel new. The council speaker began without ceremony. The Alliance acknowledges that previous assessments of humanity were incomplete, the speaker said. This session is to discuss revised integration. Elias listened. He did not interrupt. They spoke of cooperation, of mutual security, of shared responsibility. All reasonable words. Then came the real question. What does humanity want? The speaker asked. The chamber grew quiet. Elias stood slowly. He did not raise his voice. He did not display data. He spoke plainly. Humanity wants what it has always wanted, he said. The chance to decide its own future. A few representatives shifted. Others remained still. We are not here to dominate, Elias continued. We are not here to replace existing systems, but we will no longer accept being shaped without our knowledge. The speaker nodded. And if the Alliance refuses? Elias met their gaze. Then humanity will continue doing what it has been doing. Solving problems. Building connections. Helping where help is needed. He paused. And adapting. The message was clear without being a threat. After the session ended, Elias did not leave immediately. He walked the station alone, thinking about the strange path that had led him here. He was not a hero. He was not chosen by destiny. He had simply stepped through a door and refused to look away. He stopped near a familiar corridor, the alien researchers' quarters. They were sealed, guarded, officially inactive. But as Elias stood there, a small indicator light flickered. A private channel opened. You came, her voice said quietly. I was invited, Elias replied. That's new for us. There was a hint of something like amusement in her tone. The council will authorize my release, under supervision. They no longer consider me dangerous. Because the truth is already out, Elias said. Yes, she agreed. And because your species handled it differently than expected. They stood in silence for a moment, separated by walls and choices already made. They changed the label, she said. Elias frowned. What label? The archive entry, she replied. Your photograph. She sent the image. It was the same photo Elias remembered. Younger. Unaware. But the text beneath it was different now. It no longer marked him as a subject of study. It marked him as a reference point. Not the beginning, the shift. On Earth, the changes were becoming visible. Human technology did not leap forward overnight. There were no miracle engines or unstoppable fleets. Instead, human influence spread through cooperation, shared tools, open systems, flexible designs that other species began adopting because they worked. Alliance engineers quietly asked humans for advice. not instructions. Advice. Human colonies became hubs of mixed species, not because humans demanded it, but because others felt safer building alongside them. Humans did not expect perfection. They expected effort. That made all the difference. A year later, the Alliance Charter was revised, not rewritten, revised. It acknowledged that adaptability was as valuable as longevity, that resilience mattered as much as stability, that no species should be shaped without consent, even for their own good. It was not an apology, but it was close. Elias returned to Earth after his term ended. He walked through familiar streets, hearing familiar noise, feeling the gravity he had grown up with. Children ran past him, arguing about games, dreams spilling out faster than their words. He smiled. Humanity was still messy, still loud, still imperfect, and still moving forward. On a quiet evening, Elias received one final message from the alien researcher. "The models now include humanity as a stabilizing variable," she wrote. "That has never happened before." Elias replied after a moment. "We don't try to be stable," he wrote. "We try to survive together." Somewhere far beyond Earth, Alliance observers updated their records. Human entries grew longer, more complex, harder to summarize. That made some uncomfortable, others hopeful. The galaxy had not gained a conqueror. It had gained something rarer. A species that had been underestimated, restrained, and delayed, yet chose understanding over revenge, growth over control, and cooperation without submission. Humanity did not announce its arrival with fire. They announced it by stepping forward, looking the universe in the eye, and saying, "We're here, and we're not leaving."